Broadcasts of the City of Neenah Common Council meetings are produced by University Studios of the University of Wisconsin-Fox Valley. Neenah residents can get information about City Council meetings, City Committee meetings, meeting agendas, and other documents via the City website, www.neenahgov.org. Neenah residents can express their opinions about city issues or about these broadcasts by contacting the mayor's office, contacting their city alderman, or by completing the electronic feedback form on the city website, www.neenahgov.org. All public portions of the meetings are recorded in entirety and are not edited for playback.
7 o'clock, so I'm going to call the Common Council meeting for March 7th to order and ask the city clerk to call the roll, and those in attendance, please punch in.
Alderman Boyette.
Here.
Bates.
Here.
Hillstrom.
Here.
Lendrum.
Here.
Erickson.
Here.
Lang.
Here.
Polno.
Here.
Coons.
Here.
Stevenson.
Here. Minutes to show that Mayor Crawford is out of the office today and that the council president has assumed the chair. At this time, I'll ask for you all to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you for that. Tonight we have a one little presentation. The new Neenah High School traffic signal box wrap project, Powered Up, will be presented by Neenah teachers Lisa Dorschner and Emma Santiago. Correct? Come on up. And you have 3 students. Welcome.
Good evening, Council, and thank you for having us tonight. My name is Lisa Dorschner, and I'm art teacher at Neenah High School, here with my colleague, Emma Santiago, our teacher. And I'd like to introduce 3 students representing the Art Foundation's two-dimensional design class from Neenah High School. And they are each going to present a little something about the project that we are very excited about. So our first student to speak tonight is Miranda Verrett.
Hi, so our Art Foundation class spent a month planning, painting, and preparing a mock-up for the control box. We worked in small groups and created 14 images with the help of Jane Lang, president of the Neenah Historical Society. She helped us do historical notes we needed for graphic designer Sean Keepers is going to help us prepare for the final design, digital artwork needed to produce for the traffic control box wrap-up.
Next, we have Evangeline Lentz, who's going to tell you about our design approach.
Our class was inspired by the posterized art style created by pop artist Andy Warhol in the 1950s. This simplified, bright color style puts an emphasis on these important historical figures and landmarks. The bright colors will add vibrancy and character to the corner of Commercial and Wisconsin streets in Neenah.
And next we have Aiden Last, who's going to tell you a little bit about our class.
Hi. We are really looking forward to displaying this control box for everyone to look at because we think that it will do a really good job of showing Neenah's history in a creative and eye-catching way, and we're looking forward to displaying these control boxes like this one in front of Associated Bank and other ones all over the city.
And next, Emma Santiago is going to tell you a little bit about a second box with preliminary sketches that are being prepared by her class.
All right. Okay, I'm going to try to work this. so that you can see some of these ones. I have a drawing and painting 2 class. And so what they're doing, they're a little bit more advanced. So I kind of put them into groups and gave them themes. And our theme for our box is going to be the history of Neenah Police. So I met with Aaron Olson. We got some historical photos of different areas of the police department. And so our students started depicting symbols that they thought of when they started thinking about Neenah Police and what they do for our community. And so these are just some sketches and preliminary drawings that they are starting up, and then we'll get to our mock-up in just a few weeks. So just so you can see what they're kind of up to. Of them. So some of the themes were helping out the community, things like symbols that pop to their head. We have badges, uniforms, canines, old-time cars, also Neenah historical buildings, talking about the community that they serve and protect. This one's a fingerprint. We got a fingerprint kind of a class where they got to learn how to take their fingerprints off of different items, so they were inspired by that.
Well, thank you for that, because I thought that might have been Captain Olson's profile. I got a little nervous there.
So they're experimenting right now.
Nice.
And then the last 3 are all about the uniforms combined with the piece that they bring to our community. So that's kind of their beginning of their police box is what they've been calling it. And then we'll work on our mock-up once they finish up some of their designs.
So what the students created for you is a 50% model over here. And the different images on here, there are 14 different images depicting key figures and landmarks in Neenah. And hopefully future boxes can zero in more detail on some of these wonderful places and people. So you're welcome to take a look at this, or if you have any questions, we'd love to help you out with those.
Anyone from the council have any questions for the group? Arjun, then Carrie.
I was wondering if you could spin it around to see the different sides that we have on there, and whether our camera man can get a shot of this, perhaps on the table.
Maybe put it up and yeah, put it in front and replace the podium with by the microphone there, because that's where we shoot all the good-looking
This?
people. You get it, Dan? Thank you.
So the side facing you right now is the side that would be right along the sidewalk in front of the bank. And there's, I believe, a vent and a handle off to this side over here. So on this side, we have
Clara Shattuck,
Theta Clark Peters,
Theta Clark Peters,
Helen Kimberly Stewart,
Helen Kimberly Stewart,
and the council tree.
and the council tree.
And then facing on the east side is going to be the clock towers and the library. And let's see what else we have on that side.
It's like the Clarks.
We have Charles Clark.
Do you want to tell them what's going to be facing the street side? Hayden, I'll let you go ahead and read those.
We have the Neenah Lighthouse at Kimberly Point, the Babcock House, the ERA building, and the Octagon House.
And tell them that's facing the street.
And this one's going to be facing the street.
And then facing the west, do you want to tell them what's there on this side?
And then on the west side, we have Riverside Park, downtown Neenah, and Doty Cabin.
Great. Carrie, did you have a question?
Yes, I did. So I assume you send the artwork out to get a wrap made? I've seen those in bigger cities. About how long does that last in our weather? Do you know how many seasons?
Could you use the microphone so the people at home can?
I don't think they gave us an exact, I feel like I'm not looking at half of you.
That's all right.
But we can hear you.
I don't think they gave us an exact timeline for it, but Appleton uses the same wraps, and theirs have been up for years.
Oh,
So,
okay.
yeah,
And can we look forward to more than just a few?
hopefully.
Okay, thank
We're
you.
crossing our fingers.
Thank you.
Christopher?
And what's a date for this, and what is there going to be a big reveal then, and what's going to happen?
The artwork is being scanned and digitally given to Sean Keepers, a freelance graphic designer who graduated with Jane Lang from Neenah High School. And he is going to be putting the copy and the images into a digital format for the printer. And the idea would be to install the wrap as soon as 60 degrees or warmer this spring.
And will there be any kind of event to reveal that, or anything exciting
Jane would really like to have something, so we'll definitely plan an unveiling.
Well, if Jane wants it, there'll be an unveiling.
Okay.
Any other questions from the council? Well, Lisa and Emma, first of all, to you, thank you for your commitment to our youth. To Miranda and Jaleese, did I say that correct? Okay, I didn't hear you, so I'll take your word for it. And Aiden, thank you for coming. Thank you and sharing the story. Jane and Captain Olson, thank you for participating. It's always great to see our community, our municipality interacting with our youth. And whether it's here or St. Mary's or, grade schools, we do a lot of things. I think anytime we can interact and send our message from a municipal perspective and share that, and then you share back your talents, that's who we are. And so thank you, all of you, for what you did. Okay, that will take us down to item 3, the approval of the council proceedings from February 7th and 21st, and the February 6th committee of the whole meeting.
Motion's approved.
We have a motion.
Second?
Motion by Palmo, seconded by Bates to approve the various proceedings from multiple sessions. Any discussion, changes? Alderperson Lendrum?
Thank you. February 21st minutes, number 16A. It just says Alderman Lendrum agreed with Alderman Coons to be careful not to react to residents that speak the loudest. She, meaning me, expressed concern over the hours being spent on this. Going over the broadcast, I feel like that should be elaborated more. I was chastising some of the council for spending hours and hours and hours of staff time and council time on a very select group of streets when I couldn't even get a second for a couple streets in District 1. So if we could review that and hopefully make those changes to get my point across, that would be great. Thank you, Patty.
Any other comments or questions regarding the motion on the table regarding proceedings and minutes? Seeing none, all in favor will vote aye. Those opposed, no. Those minutes and proceedings are approved. We have no public hearings, no plan commission report. Brings us down to Roman numeral 6, the public forum. This allows any resident or any person, quite honestly, to speak for up to 5 minutes on any topic they so choose. We only ask that you give your name and your address so that we have a record in case we need to get back to you. So is there anybody in the crowd this evening who would like to speak in a public forum? Yes, come step forward, please.
Thank you, Alderman. Thank you, Council. All right, some familiar faces here. Is there anybody here? I was here last time about...
Ma'am, could we just get your name and address?
I'm sorry, Lori and Rick Piotr, 206 Lorraine Avenue.
Go ahead. Thank you.
Okay. Is there anybody here from the last council meeting when I was addressing dangerous breeds of dogs? Is anybody here for that? Rick? Okay. I don't know if you saw these pictures, and from the familiar faces, this is my dog Dito. Never hurt a fly, always minded his own business. Okay, anybody else? Brian, did you ever see my dog? Brian, did you see what the pit bulls did to my dog?
Lori, could you just talk to the council, please?
Okay.
Thank you.
So, did the alderman receive my email and read it? Nobody got my email?
Don't believe so.
Really?
When was it sent? Do you know?
I sent it on Sunday.
I don't remember seeing it, but I'll check. Go ahead.
Okay. As of that, I guess there's no questions from you. Update from the National Pit Bull Victims Awareness. February 18th was 63 cases with 2 deaths. As of March 3rd, there's 93 cases with 3 deaths. This is in the United States and Canada, and we're only in the beginning of the year. 2016 was 352 cases. Now, .org, this National Pit Bull Victim Awareness, there's dots on a map where every publicized pit bull attack has occurred, okay? That's only if it reached the TV station. In 2016, there was 352 cases. In 2017, there was 807 cases. That's 60% up in 1 year. What is 2018 going to bring? Now, this is my 3rd encounter with a pit bull. My dog dying. 4 years ago, 2 houses down, my neighbors had pit bulls. They were attacking each other. The owner went out to try and break them up. I saw that through my window. I ran out there. I grabbed one of the pit bulls by the collar, and she grabbed the other one. By the time we got them off of each other, there was nothing but blood. And those animals just kept hanging on to each other. And I can't remember if it was 1993 or 1994. The house right door next to me had a pit bull that got off, got lost, and was standing at my next door neighbor's front door. The animal lover that I am, I called the police. They couldn't come right away, and Angie had to go to work. I took 1 step off of the sidewalk onto her house sidewalk. That pit bull went from her porch, jumped, and took 1 leap onto me and got my leg. And thank God I had baggy sweatpants on. It put a hole in my pants like this, and I didn't do anything wrong for that dog to attack me. I learned my lesson with these animals. They are truly, truly unpredictable when they get out of their element. They go in a survival mode, and they can't help themselves. Now, whether the owner can contain the dog or not, keep it at its residence, it's a simple fix. Any dangerous breed, why can't they just have a backyard, a fenced-in backyard? I don't want them euthanized. We don't. We don't want them banned. We don't even want them restricted. We just want them to be contained. If the owner can't control these animals, then maybe the city has to set up an ordinance to do it for them. The PSI on a pit bull alone is 235. Your average car tire takes about 35, 37 pounds of pressure. When you put too much in there, it's probably about 47. Did you ever hear a tire blow? The pressure that comes out of it is overwhelming. And when these dogs bite, it's not that they will bite. When they do bite, they hang on. Their jaws don't lock. It's just that breed that hangs on, and they will let go when they want to let go. And by then, it's probably too late for injury and or death. Your Rottweiler has 328 PSI. Your Mastiff has 556 PSI pounds per pressure. You are not going to get jaws off of you if they clamp on you. And it's time for a change. Every year, there's change. It's inevitable. When things get out of hand with change, there's more ordinances, there's more laws, there's more rules. It's just like the cell phones and the sexting, okay?
Lori, could I just, you've reached your 5 minutes, so if you could wrap up, please.
Okay, I will resend that email out, okay, tomorrow, and hopefully you will get it. There will be some attachments from the proof that I do have on pit bulls and stuff like that, okay?
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you. I did check my email. I didn't see anything from you on Sunday, so.
I will resend it then.
Great.
Thank you.
Anyone else like to speak to the council during our public forum session this evening?
Brian Defferding, 686 Oak Street. In regards to pit bulls, first off, just recently it was revealed, thanks to the police chief, that we reviewed all of the dog bites and dog incidents that happened in 2017, just recently at the Public Safety and Services Committee meeting. And I looked at that list. Pit bulls were maybe about 1% out of all of those incidents. The one repeat offender was a mixed breed. It's not a problem. Furthermore, after looking into that incident, I found out that the dog that was involved in your incident was only half pit bull. It was half boxer too. And I find it funny that only one half of the breed has been stressed and not the other half of the breed. That is all.
Thank you. Come on up. I'm going to suggest I'm not going to entertain a debate here.
Okay. The breed that had killed my dog was a pit bull and a bulldog mix. They call it a bully. That's for one. Now, I was a little concerned with potentially and dangerous, potentially what? Animal survey of the city. Out of 37 cases, 20 of them, that's over half of them, were pit bulls, boxers, bulldogs, and mastiffs. The animal calls that came in 2017 are the highest on record. There is data out there that between 75 and 90% of the time, the biting dog is a dog known to the family. Christmas time, everybody gets excited, and a dog bites a little kid, and oh, no. Okay?
Yeah, Lori, I've allowed you to respond to Mr. Defferding's statistics. So if there's anything else that you would want to say in response to that, otherwise I can't let you speak for another 5 minutes.
Okay. Like I said, a fenced-in yard. Brian, do you have a fenced-in yard?
Again, I'm
Backyard?
I'm not going to allow you to interact with another member.
Okay. I guess that's all I really have to say then.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other resident or person that would like to speak to the council under our public forum? Yes, sir.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen of the council.
Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Dwight Kerr. I live on High Street in Neenah. I was up here about a year ago and spoke briefly about the parking and the traffic pattern by the YMCA. I just sent an email to each of you or to the whole council tonight regarding some incidences, some parking things that were there. The reason I'm up here tonight is the mayor had, with Officer Stu, had a crosswalk initiative in downtown Neenah. We have a situation at the Y that we have 15 or so parking spaces on the opposite side of the street from the Y that are back-end parking. Of those 15 parking spaces, I will tell you that at any given time, 15 people jaywalk across that street. They never go to a crosswalk. I believe that the city of Neenah is probably the only city in the world that has a situation to where we let students get off of a school bus into a lane of traffic with a diagonally striped line protecting them. I went past the Y when a handicapped school bus was there with the ramp to the back door down. The ramp to the back door for the handicapped wheelchair access extended beyond the diagonally striped safety area for students to get off or for people to unload their children from. We have a situation there that is going to get somebody hurt or killed one of these days. I've lived on High Street for over 23 years. For 22 of those years, I never saw an accident at the intersection of Northwest Water Street and Commercial Street. I'm not saying they haven't happened, but I had never seen one. In the last year, since we've had that traffic pattern, I have personally seen 2 accidents, the immediate result of. One, the police had not got to yet. The other one, the police had got there and were clearing it up. I was almost involved in one myself. A car in front of me turned onto Northwest Water Street from Commercial Street. I followed it. The person stopped, had just barely cleared the crosswalk area and stopped. I was halfway exposed out onto Commercial Street. I honked my horn. Fortunately for me, that person moved. I have seen one other incident where a person turned onto Northwest Water Street and stopped. The car behind them didn't even have time to think about blowing their horn. They actually went around that car in the unloading zone to avoid being hit by traffic coming up behind them. That's an extremely unsafe situation there. The other reason I came up is about a year or so ago where there was a meeting at the YMCA that Kerry set up where there was, I shouldn't say Kerry, but possibly Kerry and the Doty Island group, where they wanted to inquire as to what would be, what we could do for the western part of Doty Island to bring our little community together. And we talked about a few things, and one of the things that was brought up was the Trestle Trail. And it was said at that time that the Trestle Trail wasn't an item that we should talk to at that time, and we'd set a meeting up to discuss just that issue. I believe Kerry set that up with a lady from Future Neenah about a month later. And there was the woman from Future Neenah, there was a person from our Parks Department, there was a person that had something to do with traffic counts. There was 2 or 3 other people in the audience that were taking notes for the woman from Future Neenah, and there were about 20 to 25 citizens. Of the 20 to 25 citizens, only one spoke up that she was directly and positively for the Trestle Trail. There are 352,000 potential users of that trail, according to the people that have spoken on television and the news programs, in print. I believe that number is grossly overestimated, but it's worked for them. I'll use the same number. 352,000, that's just slightly less than 1,000 a day.
So Dwight, could I just, your 5 minutes is up, but if you could just wrap up then, please.
What I'll do is I'll come back another time. I'll see you on, I've got about probably 5 minutes just on this subject. In that case, I'll come back at another time.
Anyone else like to speak to the council? Anyone? Anyone? Okay, I'll close the public forum and move on to the council consideration of the public forum issues. I will only contribute that I talked to Dwight numerous times about the YMCA, and I know that the Public Services and Safety Committee, under Alderperson Bates's chairmanship, reviews that situation regularly, and that Jerry and James Merton are monitoring it at the committee's request. Some of the information you shared tonight was new to me, but I know the staff is aware of the council's concern. We're monitoring it and making sure that we provide safety and a well-traveled structure out at the Y. So I don't know if Alderperson Bates, go ahead.
I think it would be appropriate that at our next meeting or as soon as we can to get a count of how accidents might be in that particular area and comparing it to previous years based on because sometimes you see what you see at one time, and it's good to compare to what might have happened before. So I guess I'd ask the chief if he could, he's nodding his head.
Okay, I'm sorry, Alderperson Landrum?
Thank you. I'm more concerned that we didn't get their emails, Mr. Kurz and the Piotr's email. So I got one from a different constituent, so I think it's working, but I've got it up right now, and I don't have either one of yours. So if you would maybe call the city clerk, and she could maybe talk you through, or call me, and I'll talk you through sending it again. I'm concerned that it's not you, that it's maybe on our end. So I'll call our IT department too and just double check. Because if you're not getting any responses from anyone when you send, then there's something wrong. Because one of us will answer any email. So I'll check with them tomorrow. Yep, we'll check with IT.
Alderperson Paulo?
Just I was going to kind of weigh in on that, because email is very persnickety. I was going to read out that actual email, because you said city council at Neenah. That's not the email. It's city council at ci.neenah.wi.us. So it's a unique one. It's familiar to government, but it has a lot of dots in it. And if at any one of those dots you don't put in, it might not have went through. I've heard that from people, because it's not like your normal type emails with all those dots in there. So I would, before we contact IT, I would double check your sent items folder to see exactly which one you sent.
Any other comments from the council? Alderperson Coons?
I was going to say thank you, Mayor, but thank you.
I've been called worse.
Yeah. Just from a clarity standpoint, my recollection, and maybe it's fuzzy here, this conversation of dog bites came up before, and I thought there was some desire to have this come to public service and safety, or bring this subject up at public service and safety. Did I make that up?
Yeah, I don't recall anything coming from the last meeting from any council member wanting to discussed that at Public Services and Safety. I don't remember it, but
Maybe I just was thinking that would be a natural. To me, I'm not sure exactly what the request was this evening, to be honest, but for me, the idea of licensing dogs and the ramifications and the fact that we don't do much about that, to me, that was brought up last time. That, to me, seems to be a reasonable subject from a public service and safety standpoint to address, but I'll leave it up to the chairman on that.
I've just scheduled 2 weeks from now to discuss the traffic situation at the Y. We'll put on soon after that to get this a nice discussion.
And if Alderperson Bates chooses to bring it on the agenda, could we ask that the PIers, once we get their email, can get notified of that, please?
Effordings as well, so.
Yeah, of course. Thank you. Any other comments from the council? Bill, did you have another one?
Yeah.
Okay. Alderperson Palmer.
Thank you. I just want to address in regard to animals and specifically dogs, but as one who voted against the ordinance on a process thing about 4 years ago, we implemented an ordinance that actually created a process to identify problem. It primarily is problem dogs. I mean, you could have a parakeet per ordinance that would go bad, but it's a dangerous animal. So I just would want to recommend you just learn more of that process. It might behoove you to sit in, and maybe you've already read that ordinance because you sound pretty passionate, but maybe go to one of those processes to see exactly the due diligence that goes into an incident. I'm always about process, not always be very reticent to support any type of ordinance that gives a blanket yes or no on anything. I just think it's good to have, because there's always extenuating circumstances that I think a room full of rational people can address and make opinions on. And I think from one of the ones I've seen, that's what we do here. So I just want to give you that there is a process that takes place in these, for instances. It's not perfect, but it's much better than it was. Thank you.
Any other comments? Seeing none, then we'll move on to the consent agenda. Roman numeral 8.
Motion to approve the consent agenda?
Second.
I have a motion by Paulino and second by Bates to approve all items on the consent agenda. Any discussion or changes or requests to remove? Seeing none, all in favor of approving all items on the consent agenda will vote aye. Opposed will vote no. The consent agenda is approved unanimously. Brings us down to the reports of standing committees. First one is the Public Services and Safety Committee, Chairman Bates.
Thank you, President Stevenson. Committee recommends council approve the Sprint Communications easement request in Douglas Park, and I would so move.
Second.
We have a motion by Bates, seconded by Lendrum to approve the Sprint Communication easement at Douglas Park. Any discussion regarding that motion? Seeing none, all in favor will vote aye. Opposed will vote no. That motion passes unanimously.
The committee recommends council adopt ordinance number 2018-04, creating Neenah Code statute. What? Section, thank you, 11-181, sexting prohibited, and I would so move.
Second.
Moved by Bates and seconded by Lendrum to approve ordinance 2018-04. Alderperson Paulino, in discussion.
Yeah, I wasn't able to attend the committee, so I would have had these questions answered then. Attorney Goletsky, how much, because I read through this, I got a couple of questions. First off, in the information that was provided to the committee, and it seems a reference that the liaison officer in the school had worked with the chief in regard to this. How much written communication was provided to you and or the committee from the school district specific to this item, if any?
I didn't receive anything from the school district. I worked with the chief on the draft of the ordinance.
So we haven't had any communication with the school?
I'm sure there was communication between the department and the school because that's where the
No, but I'm talking about your office, I should say, or your.
No.
Okay, so Okay, so we don't know process-wise and policy-wise if we're in conflict per any discussions. I guess that's what I would.
Conflict.
I mean, with this, I mean, we're passing an ordinance without communicating with the school.
That communication happened between the police department and the school.
I know, but I'm just saying, I'm asking you as the city attorney, and I don't, if there's any conflict, that's usually what would go on, correct?
I assume that the police department had adequately communicated with the school district, and if the school district had an issue, they would have contacted me. There wasn't any. This was a uniform language that's been utilized in a number of communities in the Fox cities. So I don't know.
I don't know that. I'm just asking legally. We haven't had communications, correct?
I don't know what you mean by legally.
Well, legally being their policy or the conflict, or usually if you reference somebody that has an issue, I would just assume that if they have an issue with this problem, they would have been in communication with your office and working together to put this together. But that doesn't sound. It sounds like you relied on the police department to do that work, do that communication.
Because the police department is the department that has the contact with the police department, with the school district, and is the locus of the enforcement issues that have come up with regard to this problem. So I rely on the expertise of the police department to determine what was the appropriate approach. I reviewed it from a due process and legal standpoint and found it to be acceptable under legal standards. But as far as the policy implications, that's really a question for the police department if there's specific policy issues that council has with regard to that.
I'm not saying I have an issue or not. I just don't know because the police department does what they do and legal does what you do, and that's why I'm asking you about that component.
I reviewed the language with regard to due process considerations and legal principles, and it satisfies those issues, and so I was satisfied with the form of the ordinance. With regard to the school district's concerns about this, I know that they expressed those to the police department, and that was brought into play, as my understanding, with regard to the draft that was developed.
Okay. What other municipalities have passed some? Because you referenced other municipalities have utilized this type of. What specific municipalities have passed this type of ordinance?
My understanding is other Fox cities, communities are under consideration. I don't know the exact ones that have, but it's been under review by the Chiefs Association, Chiefs Organization for the Fox cities.
Okay. All right. So just so I'm clear, we haven't discussed this with you. Your office hadn't discussed this with the school district, and the police department had worked with them, and your understanding, you don't know of any definitive other municipalities that have passed this ordinance, but there is some reference to them working on it. Is that correct?
The chief has indicated to me that this is a common effort among the police chiefs, police departments in the Fox cities area.
Mm-hmm. Has this been vetted through for constitutionality? Because I'm just thinking, if you're talking sexting ordinance, I don't know how you would enforce this. I mean, are we putting in our officers in a position where they would confiscate a smartphone? I mean, how would this be enforced? Would this have to come through Judge Guns's, the process?
As an ordinance, a violation of this would be a municipal ordinance that would appear before the municipal court, yes.
How would we get evidence for that type of ordinance enforcement? I mean, what would the officer have to do if, say, there was a reference to we're talking an underage person. If there was reference to sexting, what does the officer have to do? I mean, I think that's troubled waters, personally.
Typically, in a situation like this, an individual may receive a text message from someone else with the offending picture attached and report that to the police, and that's where the investigation would go. Mm-hmm. They would gather the evidence in the normal course through investigation and interview of individuals that were involved and develop the case that way.
But this isn't anywhere near normal because it's underage, which is a different component, I think, than normal. I find that troubling.
When you say underage, that doesn't necessarily change the investigative procedure. It just means that the information that is developed is kept confidential. as a juvenile record.
But isn't it also true that, like the police department, when they have to do sex crimes for underage, that's a very special segregated unit per se. There's very special protocols that have to be adhered to as far as disbursement of the
police school
information.
liaison officer follows certain protocols. Yes, that's correct. But that doesn't diminish the legitimacy of the ordinance that's been drafted. I mean, what is your concern here?
My concern is you're talking sexually explicit pictures that involve minors, and the enforcement is being put upon our officers. So that, to me, would put me in a troubling situation if it's misconstrued, or say if that phone is lost or misrouted, or what if the parent comes back and said XYZ didn't do what they were supposed to. I find this different than any other thing I've seen in front of our council. So I'm being very specific about my questions.
Okay, but and I think I've answered your question, so I don't understand. I don't understand what the concern is.
What would an officer do for evidence? Does he confiscate the phone to prove his case? When he's going in front of Judge Guns, what does he present? Does he present pictures of a underage person?
Typically, what would be in the chain of command, what would happen is somebody would report the issue, or possibly report the issue, or they would develop information that indicates that individuals have been sexting or texting illicit pictures. Those, if they got cooperation with or was reported by an individual, that would allow them the opportunity to print off those matters and where it came from, and that would be entered into the chain of evidence that would be utilized in the prosecution of that case. It would be developed no different than any other case of involving evidence on a smartphone, for instance.
I know. I won't go elaborate. I find that very troubling that we're saying this is like a normal case. This is not a normal case. Another municipality has done it, and you're talking about presenting information that's pictures of an underage person who could be unclad.
Well, again, if it's a juvenile that's being prosecuted, that would be done in closed session before the municipal court. Those are closed sessions, not open to the public, so it has that safety precaution because that's required by law.
Have we ever had a closed session in the municipality? I don't remember us having closed session for municipality court.
All juvenile matters are held in confidential. The courtroom is closed, and that's done routinely.
Alderperson Boyette.
Thank you. So I have a police question. I don't know who wants to answer me. So my question is, I know we already have a state statute in place for child pornography, if you will, which is where this would fall under, because it's pictures of minors without clothes on. My question is, how or why or both would we go from a felony charge state statute to a municipal ordinance with a $200 fine and being a misdemeanor? Wouldn't we want that really bad penalty here? Because after they turn 18, it's a closed record and it doesn't follow them anyway. So I'm confused why we're doing a lesser something and we can't just work with the state statute that we have.
Thank you. That's a great question. First of all, there are several statutes that apply. The child pornography statutes apply. It's illegal to take a picture, a nude picture of someone without their knowledge. Sometimes that occurs. There's a statute about using an electronic device to transfer improper images. There's a statute for exposing a minor to harmful materials, which includes pictures of nudity. So there's a variety of statutes that are at play there. There are also some ordinances that come into play, and quite frankly, that's what the school liaison officers have been doing in the past with what they have, is they're sort of trying to cobble together what exists in current statute and current ordinance and use that to the best of their ability to make it fit the situation. The sexting ordinance sort of clarifies that, cuts to the quick, and says this really is on point for the issue that you're dealing with, rather than trying to reach to grab this one or reach to grab that one that almost fits but not quite. But these investigations and prosecutions go on all the time. It's not like we're not doing it now because we don't have an ordinance. This just makes it more clear that there is a specific ordinance that is directly targeted to that, rather than having to massage one of the other ordinances to fit. We will still use a felony statute when it's appropriate. We'll use misdemeanor statutes when they're appropriate. We'll use the ordinance when it's appropriate. And we have the class that is offered as well, where there is no citation issued, there is no arrest made. They merely go to a class instead, sort of like we do with the underage drinking. A child can go to the underage drinking class, and that satisfies the issue one time. They can't do it a second time, but for one time it becomes an educational issue. There was another point I was going to get to on that. They're picking the school liaison officers are sort of the ones that are driving the request for this. They see the need for this in the schools, so they're the ones sort of driving the need, and it has come up through the Winnebago County Chiefs Association. So I don't know where every municipality is at, but I do know that Amro and Winneconne and Oshkosh and Neenah and Menasha and Fox Crossing and the county are all moving forward on this. I don't know what status they're.
Fox Crossing just passed theirs.
They did get theirs, okay.
And then Kaukauna, Kimberly, Little Chute, and Combined Locks have also adopted the sexting ordinance.
The Outagamie County agencies were ahead of us.
Yeah.
They had the ordinance in place, and we used theirs as the model to draft the one for Winnebago County.
Okay, and then just one more. So to kind of curtail on what Alderman Pelno said, how are you going to enforce this? Because we all know you get the excuse of, I lost my phone, I didn't have my phone, my sister, my cousin, my best friend, whatever. Like, how do you enforce this then? Because I see this as a $200 fine to the parents. These kids can't afford these fines. These kids will take the class if it's offered or whatever. I mean, it seems more like we're punishing parents on this too. And I get, like, maybe it's forcing the parents to parent, but in all reality, I don't know. Are the kids really getting penalized? I don't know.
That's a valid point, because we talk about that all the time. There are different philosophies about parenting, and sometimes the parents do end up paying that, and maybe they have their own way of making the child feel the penalty of that. But I think sometimes children don't, because the parent pays it, and I can assure you that if my child ever got a ticket for this, I would pay not one penny of it, and he would pay every bit of it through shoveling driveways and mowing lawns and whatever he has to do. So, I mean, that certainly is true, but that's not different from what we do now. We already issue ordinance citations for various violations. Again, the more serious ones, we look at the state statutes and we'll refer them to juvenile authorities. The less serious ones we'll do on an ordinance.
And then just on the last thing that I said, so like Junior is accused, and we find out that probably he didn't really do it, that there was a breakup and she's being vindictive, or vice versa. I'm not picking either one. Then somewhere along the line, I know there's a rule or a law, but I can't quote it, about like falsely accusing someone of something like this. Do we need that put into this ordinance?
Well,
or I mean, because I just hate for, if it's a vindictive situation and, now somebody else is in trouble and, and the other person gets off and they're the one that really did it all, and we all know everybody lies, and so like how do we get around that mess?
Well, essentially through state statute. We have an ordinance, but we have, rather than for each ordinance or law that we have, having a caveat sentence in there that says, and if you make a false accusation in this regard, that instead of doing that, we just have a separate statute that says you can't make a false report about a police matter, nor can you obstruct the police in their work. So those statutes exist and apply to, various crimes that occur.
They're also adopted by ordinance for the city. So
Right.
So we wouldn't need something like
No.
that in this
No.
ordinance as well then?
No.
Okay, thank you.
Alderperson Lendrum.
Thank you, Chief. To address one of Alderman Polno's concerns, can you tell us whether the Neenah Joint School District Administration and Schools is supportive of this?
I wish I had something hard and fast to tell you. I know that the school liaison officers were sort of instrumental in getting this going and bringing it to the chief. So I know that they're involved, but they had the direct contact. The school liaison officers had the direct contact. I did not. When it got brought to us, I just moved it forward.
Can you get back to us on that? Can you
Absolutely.
find out? That would be great. Just email the council.
Sure.
That would be great. And this ordinance, will this give you more flexibility, more tools to help victims and minor victims and also their parents?
I certainly think so. I think it creates appropriate options. I don't know this for sure, but there are probably some victims who don't want to come forward because they don't want to saddle the perpetrator, the ex-boyfriend or whatever it was, with a potential felony that's going to haunt him for the rest of his life. And Alderman Boyette had asked the question about, or made a comment about the sealing of these records when they turn 18. That's not necessarily so. When you say police record, that can mean a lot of different things. And if you're applying for the military, especially for a secret clearance or top secret clearance, nothing is sacred. Everything is open. So, and that would be true in police work too. We go into juvenile records all the time for police applicants. So it kind of depends what you're talking about. So that's true. And I think I think having the ordinance, again, it's not that we're ignoring these cases now. We're processing them. We're making arrests, sometimes for statutes, sometimes for ordinances that we sort of craft into fitting. But this is just more precise. This makes it much simpler for those who are doing the investigations.
Okay, and then one more question. That was surprising to me, what you just said, as a parent, that certain jobs do look at juvenile records. So I guess I'm sort of glad I didn't know that back then. But so in committee, I did ask you and Captain Olson to come up with some sort of parent educational letter, or I would prefer a letter because not everyone can get away and come to the school and actually attend a meeting like that. So some sort of a letter that will, short and sweet, that will get to them. And maybe you might want to bring that up in the letter too, that this could potentially be a very serious crime that could, again, potentially affect their long-range plans. If they wanted to be in the military or a police officer, I guess I thought juvenile records were always expunged, but apparently that's not the case. So I would prefer, and I'm not really sure that parents understand, in a perfect world, every parent would understand what kids are doing every minute of the day with their smartphones and their computers. I'm guessing no. And if we can help them out by at least bringing it to their attention and so they can maybe have a conversation with their kids.
I think that's a great point. I think, and your challenge to us in committee was very good. And my limited understanding is that this is almost like a cultural thing in the schools. It has become very common in our middle and high school, not just ours, but around the country. And I think a lot of that just goes completely under the radar of the parents.
Thank you.
Alderperson Bates.
Thank you, President Stevenson. One of the issues that I was very supportive in this ordinance was the fact that it is more case specific, and one of the things that I know Alderman Polno appreciates is the fact that we're not very draconian in every issue that we have, that you are able to look at a case-by-case incidence. And you were mentioning that one case where, or not a specific case, but it could be a case where you have a 17-year-old and an 18-year-old dating each other and they break up. One of them will get not too bad. The other one will get the felony because it's over 18. he or she is over 18. Where in this case, you're getting to the point where if you are still in school and we understand that this is a relationship that's not like a pedophile or something like that, it makes it easier for you to implement some sort of education to these people without damaging their reputation forever.
Distracted.
Flexibility when somebody's turning 18.
Right. And I wanted to comment that there is, so there are people who are outside the school who are playing into this, because you may have a 20-year-old who is sending images to a 15-year-old.
That's bad.
And that's going to be bad. That one's going to be treated more seriously. And of course, one of the more common ones that we're experiencing is the boyfriend-girlfriend, consensual. You know, they just send a couple of pictures to each other, but someone finds out about it. Someone, you know, looking over the shoulder or whatever, someone finds out about it. Now, that's not too bad, because that's just between two people. It's consensual. It's wrong. We want to educate those people. That's probably where we're going to use that educational class and let them realize how bad this can go. And then the other thing that we're seeing fairly commonly is now that's going on, and it isn't that somebody sees over the shoulder. It's the breakup, and now one person maybe gets rid of those, you know, eliminates, but the other one decides, I'm going to share, and start sharing with friends who share it with friends, and it goes across the globe, potentially, because now it's available to everybody on the internet. That's very serious, and that's going to be handled much differently.
Thank you.
Alderperson Paulno.
Just want to know, this ordinance as it's currently written, I was kind of glancing through it, and I couldn't tell. It says any electronic data transmission. So the way technology changes, is it your intention to monitor all social media, Twitter, any kind of social platform as well? And if so, how would you do that?
Well, we do some of that to some extent. We participate with the International Crimes Against Children Task Force. And so we have a presence on the internet looking for those people who are trying to do bad things to children. We just heard about one over here in, I think, Wisconsin Rapids. And we certainly have that, and that's really different from what this is about. In this regard, I think probably in every case, and I'm not as close to them as for example, the school liaison officers would be, but they come to us because a parent or a child brings it to us and says, I got this, or, you know, they're sharing these pictures of me, that kind of thing. So it's not that we find it through spying. Someone brings it to us and shows us what's going on.
But as it's written, this would apply to any social media. I mean, it's reference to sexting, but it says using any device capable of electronic data transmission to transmit to a minor any image of recording or of nudity that is harmful to minors.
Correct.
So as it's written, this would have, anybody could claim or could come to you and say, well, that person sent a picture, a nefarious picture via Twitter, via any type of platform. And under this ordinance, you would have jurisdiction to issue them an ordinance. Is that how you understand this?
Yeah. I mean, we already do under the other ordinance and statutes, but yes.
Okay. Okay, so that's troubling, because I just find this one of those very much objective things, because like you said, you know, if it's boyfriend, girlfriend, it's consensual, then we're going to send, for what Alderman Lindrum says, we're going to send a letter to advise or lecture a parent of how to parent their child. I just don't think that's a place for government. I know that's maybe in the modern world in government that seems to have traction, but I think it's a bad place for us to be.
Anytime we arrest a juvenile, we will notify the parents. We let them know what's going on. And if we have something that's serious where maybe we don't make an arrest, but we could, those school liaison officers are always involving the parents.
And I'm not saying I'm against an officer's counseling or speaking to a parent, but to have a form letter or something for instance, is what you're kind of, or what I've heard is advocated by some. I think that's a very bad place to be, and that's where I see these type of ordinances gravitating to. I mean, you're kind of interjecting yourself as you know, to teach a parent how to be a parent, and I don't think that's a place for government to be, personally. But I understand the dynamic. I do.
I guess the other option is to just ignore it.
I didn't advocate that, Alderman
No,
Stevenson.
I'm just,
Okay.
Alderperson Bates.
Thank you. How I saw what Alderman Lundgren was encouraging was, even before something like this happens, to have some sort of information out to the parents to say, we see this as a problem, or maybe not a large number, but it is happening, and to let them know that this is something you need to be aware of, because as a parent, sometimes you are totally unaware of what they're doing, and just to know that you need to talk to your kids about it. There's nothing wrong with saying that if we're putting this into effect, we've seen a problem. It's better to let people know ahead of time before they say, well, I was blindsided by my kid ending up here.
Alderperson Erickson.
Thank you. Just as a point of reference, I think the police department does work with the school system and is regularly in the schools to provide information not only to the students but to the parents about certain issues, drugs, wrongful use of the internet, this type of thing. So I think it's totally appropriate for the police department to work with the school district on this. Just yesterday, I was at Coolidge School, and there was somebody from the sheriff's department and the police department there talking to kids about no time for crime. I think it's totally appropriate for the school district to get involved, and I think that they should provide information to the parents. I think that's a wonderful thing for our police department to be doing. So that's my opinion on the subject.
Alderperson Kuntz.
Sorry, I had to jump in. Yeah, I've been to high school where Neenah police were there talking about all these things with students, with parents, going over this in a large presentation at Pickard Auditorium, going over all the different issues, what it's like, what happens, all the different ways they're tricked to send pictures, all those different pieces. That's continual. I mean, this isn't some thing that just snuck up on anybody here. This has been going on for a long time. At least my reading of this is at least tell me if I'm wrong here, is looking for greater latitude to be able to deal with situations on a more, I'm going to say, common sense level, instead of trying to apply one set of rules that doesn't always work. So I see this as giving you more freedom to help parents parent instead of deciding the courts are going to do it for them. I mean, we can look at it in a million different ways, but it's a serious problem, and I think we're trying to put the best foot forward and give some flexibility and do this what's best for students, it's best for children.
Council President Stevenson, may I respond to that? Just one thing I wanted to add. To Alderman Erickson's point, we have been in the schools and we have been doing the education, but in support of what Alderman Lundgren said, that hasn't really been targeted to the parents. The issue hasn't been, let's teach the parents. The issue has been, let's help the kids make better decisions. And I agree with your recommendation that we need to make that other connection as well. In the time that I was up here, Captain Olson had come up. He had texted our high school liaison officer, Vicki Strabel, and said, does the Neenah Joint School District support this sexting ordinance? And her answer was absolutely. But I will still get a direct quote from preferably Dr. Pfeiffer and get that to you in this regard.
Okay, thank you, Chief. Any other discussion regarding the motion on the floor, which is the approval of ordinance 2018-04? Seeing none. Patty had to step out. Well, very good. Quick learner. All in favor of the motion will indicate by voting aye. Any opposed will vote no. With one exception, that motion passes. Alderperson Bates.
Thank you. Committee recommends council approve an amendment to the professional services agreement with MSA Professional Services for the Downtown Neenah Traffic Study Project for proposed scope additions in an amount not to exceed $2,257, and I would so move.
A motion by Bates.
Second.
Okay.
Second.
A motion by Bates, seconded by Lundgren, to approve the amendment to the professional services agreement with MSA Professional Services in the amount of $2,257. Discussion item, Alderperson Paulno.
Just for the record, then this total amount spent will be what, Director Hayes? If this or if this is approved? Or is it?
I've got it in the minutes here. Let me just double check.
Jerry.
Jerry, Chris, same thing.
They look alike.
The total amount is going to be, my minute's killed on me, so. $31,907.
Excellent, and we're still under budget, correct?
Yes, we are. Yes, we are.
Okay, we have a motion to approve the amendment to the downtown traffic study project. Is there any other discussion? Let the clerk cycle through. Any other discussion regarding the motion on the floor? Okay, seeing none, all in favor of that motion, please vote aye. Those opposed, vote no. The motion passes unanimously.
Item 4, committee recommends council adopt preliminary resolution number 2018-09 for curb, gutter, and pavement construction on Kingswood Drive, Remington Road, Paintbrush Road, and Shooting Star Drive, and I would so move.
We have a motion by Bates and seconded by Lendrum to approve preliminary resolution 2018-09. Discussion, Alderperson Paulno.
Yeah, just so I'm clear, this is all, is this in regard to Eagle Crest? That, and if that's the case, a couple questions. The way that had originally come about, it was kind of a connection together of the last resolution. So this is just moving forward. This is a process thing because of what we approved the last time. Attorney Gillespie?
Yes,
Okay.
because we added that as a project. This is the process in order to be able to do the special assessments on the
Okay.
property.
And that's what I thought. Questions we have, I think I seen emails or something of a meeting, public meeting, a separate public meeting than normal for this one, or is it the normal?
Say, I think you're referring to the meeting the mayor sent an email out regarding a meeting at 5 o'clock on Monday.
And is that different than the normal type of before council?
I believe it doesn't meet the legal requirement of a hearing.
That's correct. It's more on the lines of a public information meeting. It's not a required step in the process.
Okay.
But given where we are, the mayor thought it was prudent.
And that's what I kind of suspected. So that will not be considered like the meetings we have in the.
No, it will not.
And we also have that as well.
We have that as well.
Let me just interrupt here. The meetings we have.
Like 6 o'clock to 7.
Well, I think this would be similar to that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like Jerry?
Yeah, it would be similar to that, but it will not take the place of the normal public hearing that has to happen in front of the council.
Okay, that makes sense. But I'm curious as to why the special time at 5. 5 is hard for me to make, so I guess I'm wondering why the 5 o'clock and not 6 o'clock before council. Was there a
because we have something at 5, something at 6.
Yeah, and we wanted.
We have a committee. We have a finance meeting at 6. A committee of the whole for the garbage collection.
That's correct, and we wanted to, or the mayor wanted to get input from those residents earlier in the process than having the public info meeting on the night of the public hearing.
Okay.
So it was scheduled to be in advance of that.
Okay. And then it'll all be spelled out for them exactly the wheres and whys of this, because it's a very unique animal.
Yes, it is a unique one.
Okay. And thank you.
The person Kuntz.
Thank you, President Stevenson. A couple questions. First of all, do the residents know about this yet?
Our office has gotten several calls. I had one earlier this evening about it, so I assume the postcard is in their hands.
So we think there's been official notice, not word of mouth.
There's been a mailing of the postcard that happened, I believe, last Friday.
Okay. And then, what does this mean when I ask you, Director Kaiser, if this moves forward, what does that set in place? What happens then and we can't stop?
Well, there's nothing at this point that can't be stopped. More or less what this preliminary resolution sets in forward is a direction to our department to develop plans and cost estimates for the work to happen. So at the next Public Services Committee, which is next Tuesday, we would be presenting the assessment report for the project. And then following that assessment report, assuming that gets approved by committee, then we send a mailing out to all of the affected property owners, informing them of a public hearing on the special assessment for the project.
So you I don't want to say guess, but you sort of guessed the assessment, what you think that would be.
I'd like to think it's a step better than a guess.
Sorry, from engineering, you come up with some well-reasoned estimation of what that cost would be.
That's correct.
They at committee either approve it, and if they approve it, it doesn't go to council automatically. Then you go out and then you price it. You then send it out to bid.
Bidding won't happen. I had sent out a kind of a schedule of events for this project earlier this week. We'll be advertising for bids roughly the 21st and the 28th of March, planning on opening on the 4th. That happens to be the night of the public hearing, and nothing happens unless council awards the contract.
But again, I'm looking at triggers here, and the trigger is public service and safety. If they say, yeah, assessment sounds good, or whatever that means, then that moves automatically towards getting bids at whatever time. Doesn't come back to council, doesn't anything else.
That's correct.
So that comes back, we come back the day of, it all happens here, public hearing, here's the price, not a whole lot of opportunity for reaction, but...
No, we would not be processing a contract award. We're just opening bids on that same day, so we'll have numbers.
Yes.
But an actual processing of a contract award would happen probably 2 weeks following.
Sure, but but the idea would be to be a public hearing, and that'd be the same day we'd know the pricing.
That's correct.
Okay, I'm just trying to put this together. I voted for combining these, at least looking at combining these, but against the whole project because I thought the timing was poor. And I'm just trying to piece together what happens. Is there any, so we get pricing and we decide at the last minute because everybody shows up and doesn't like it or something and say, nope, we're not going to do it. Is there any negative effect from our vendors to say, what the heck is Neenah doing, pulling projects? Or it doesn't much matter?
There's always that potential, but
you don't see it as a huge...
It's not... If it had become part of our standard operating procedure, then I think contractors would have an issue. This is in a very unusual case for us, so I think they'll be understanding.
And then how this gets paid for, when does that get figured out?
Well, money hasn't been... The Eagle Crest portion of the work has not been included in the borrowing. That has happened already, so I would leave it to Mike to fill us in on how that would actually get funded.
How do we, when does that get decided? How does that get decided?
Well, again, we're discussing the issue of if we double up on
the addition of Eagle Crest to the CIP this year.
I mean, there's a number of ways. Again, one of the main things we have, and one of the great benefits of having that significant large fund balance in streets fund is it makes it very convenient, I guess, to do something like this on a cash basis, and then the council can determine later on if it desires to replenish that money in any way, or if we're comfortable, drawing the fund balance down. We've got those significant dollars, and they provide tremendous flexibility to go a number of ways.
I suppose we can replenish it. My secret wish has always been that we use that for a parking structure. But that's my secret wish. It's now out there. And then just one last question. I'm sorry for. I did talk to Jerry earlier, and I'm just trying to catch up on this piece. There's also the issue brought up at one point about subsoil issues, really about another section, not exactly this, but the fact we're combining these two. And the ability, it sounded like perhaps we'd have the ability in this time frame to, I'm going to say, strategically change that ordinance, or potentially come up with a change to that ordinance that dealt with subsoil issues, so this whole project, meaning both sides, aren't affected by it?
Yeah, I think if I recall the point in our conversation on that, committee expressed an interest in reviewing the assessment ordinance relative to subgrade repair. It's a topic we had discussed in the course of this. I think my point was that, well, I didn't have a specific direction from the committee to prepare anything in that regard. The assessment notices that have been sent out certainly would not preclude us from making an adjustment to the ordinance, over the course of the next number of months, and have that adjustment reflected in the actual special assessment billing that would happen later on in the year.
So not before the public hearing, but before we would assess.
That's correct.
And we wouldn't know exactly what that would be, but okay. And I don't know how, I would just say out loud that I'd very much like to see that as one of 9, so I'll at least put that out there. So thank you for my barrage of questions.
Alderperson Hillstrom.
Thank you, Council President Stevenson. Jerry, what we sent out, were they quoted $100 a foot estimate?
The estimate or the assessment report that was prepared for nature trails was $110 a center line, or a accessible front foot.
About Eagle Crest.
Jason and I will be preparing the assessment report for Eagle Crest tomorrow.
Okay, so they haven't gotten anything yet?
They
with
have
the price
not.
At all?
No,
okay,
they haven't gotten anything firm.
Okay, because I talked to somebody from Remington right before I came here tonight, and he quoted me $100. They were told, but and he's not. The person I talked to is not upset about getting a new street, new curb, because he knows that would increase the value of his home. What he's upset about is the timing of all this. He said he called Public Works 6 weeks ago and was told there's no chance that this street's getting done until 2020. That's when it's scheduled. So he's made plans for his finances for the year. And this doesn't work now. And he's got neighbors that are quite upset too. So, it's just, for years we've tried to do this earlier and earlier because we keep hearing from constituents that they want to know so they can plan. And here we are in March, and we're doing this now. So I'll be voting against this tonight.
Alderperson Paulno.
Just want to weigh in on the timing as well, because we had this on our agenda at 2020 and the capital improvement, and a lot of times we move things back. It doesn't mean we would move this back. We're doing this to expedite and to acquiesce for the residents that spoke at our council. That's how I see it. I don't think that's a good process. We might have delayed this. So we might have done it in 2021. It means to get another year of that street. Maybe not. But to say it's not possible, I don't think is fair. So I just think this is a bad process. We're doing it because the loudest voices spoke and the most powerful people acquiesced to that. And I don't think that's the way we should run this. Thank you.
Alderperson Kuntz.
Sorry, that's it. One comment then. I say I wasn't for this. Again, I look at it makes sense. At least if you're going to do it, take a look. I'd postpone the whole thing, but I don't always get my way. But at least I want to be clear. At least where I'm standing on this as it moves forward. When we get pricing and it comes to public hearing, we've been, at least I think as a council, myself in particular, if we pretty much move ahead with projects once we've laid them out and gone with it. People aren't always happy with it, but we've been pretty steadfast on that, and I think that's important for the process. But on this one, I'm certainly going to be much more lenient or much more listening to the groups because it did come in late, and I think because of that, there's a certain different ear I'm going to use in looking forward to this. To me, it makes sense if at this point to take a look at it, but not be committed to it, and that's at least where I'm coming from.
Okay, someone wants to talk, but I'm not sure who. Okay, Marge?
Thank you, President Stevenson. I see this as a way of getting the information, not necessarily going forward with it. The other thing is by getting this done early, it's another one of the perks of it would be less time that the mat on streets would deteriorate to cost them more money in 2 years. So it's possible that they'll get this done earlier at a lesser cost, and then the economy of scale for the whole project and maybe getting a better bid would lower it as well. So getting the information, I think, is a positive thing.
Alderperson Boyette, I think.
Thank you. Thank you. So I have a question. Have we done this in the past for other areas of the city?
Have we done this? You're talking about amending an existing capital project to...
On short notice? Have we done this in the past?
Well, I can tell you, we have removed the street. We've removed the street. We removed the street some years ago, the night we did the borrowing. If you, I'm just telling you.
But that's removing a
Yeah.
street. That's probably giving somebody the whoosh. This is adding.
Yeah, the closest thing that's coming to mind is Greenfield Street. I want to say that was around 2010. There was some resident support to have that street done at that time, so that's not an apples to apples comparison.
And that one, and the mayor.
The person Bates's question was, what about Cecil Street?
Cecil Street was actually split from the original project. We split that in 2 phases.
It was it was modified from the budget that was presented by the mayor.
That's correct. That's correct.
I just, one more thing.
Yeah, go ahead.
I just want to say, I get it. We all have these large bills when it comes to the streets, and everybody, no matter what economic level you fall on, it's a burden to your pocketbook. But when we asked for extra help or to help accommodate other neighborhoods in my district, we didn't get this much consideration. So I'm fair for fair. What's good for one is good for all, and I'm opposing this evening.
Okay, we have a motion on resolution 2018-09. Is there any other discussion? I will add only that an action tonight is only consistent with the action we took at the last meeting, which was Alderperson Kuntz's, let's just see the data. Let's see what it does. And if it provides the burden that some people are worried about, if it provides this rationale, then we have the power to remove it. But this simply allows us to gather the data and see and nothing else gives our public works department the opportunity to say, a project this size costs this much or this much, and a project this size costs this much. It's good data. What are we hurting? We're not committing the project to the budget. We're not saying we're going to do it. We're simply saying, let's find out how much the incremental cost will be to combine it. And if it's too much, then we vote it, we say no. So, Alderperson Boyette.
I want to answer your question with a question. Are we going to do this then in the future? Or is this going to be like our new norm for projects?
You don't expect me to answer that.
Well, you asked me a question that I can't answer, so I figured.
No, I can't predict what any council will do. So is this the new norm? It is if the council makes it the new norm. I would guess it's not going to be the new norm. But I will also say that in my 28 years on this council, capital projects come in, they come out, they get combined, they get separated. Cecil Street gets this. We have, Cedar Street. Cedar Street's in, it's in, it's in. Then at the last minute we say, no, they don't, the residents don't want it, so it's an easy one to take out. So so is it the new norm? The new norm is we will evaluate projects and we will debate them and we will gather information to determine what's the financially prudent thing to do for not only the city and all of its residents, but for the constituents that live on that street. So in the case of a preliminary resolution, from my mind, based on the action that passed last time, this is really a process question that had to take place for us to even proceed to get the bids, because without this, we can't bid it to get the information that we said, let's evaluate. So I can't answer the norm question, much as I think I'd like to. That's okay. That's Alderperson Coons.
Sorry, one last question, and this is to Director Kaiser. Jerry, do you think it's possible to get a estimate of what a subsoil ordinance might reduce the cost down? Do we know what % of the project, or is there any way of coming with that by the time of the public hearing? Estimate, not understanding that just like all the numbers, they might come in differently. But I'm just wondering.
Well, in front of the committee, I'd just kind of thrown a concept out, and that wouldn't be all that difficult to put a number to, using our estimated quantities for that type of work. Sure, that wouldn't be that tough.
To me, that would be nice to know, because that way at least we're not. This is the perception that this other group would be paying for some subsoil work or being somehow held accountable for some other issue somewhere else. It might, at least in my opinion, help compare this in true apple-to-apples format.
Okay, we have a motion regarding Resolution 2018-09. Is there any other discussion on that motion? Seeing none, all in favor of the passage of Resolution 2018-09 will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. Motion passes on a 6-3 thing. No, 5. There's only 8. Well, that's right, there's 9 of us. I'm sorry. Well, 6-3. It's a new math.
And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Alderperson Bates. Brings us to the regular Finance and Personnel Committee meeting of February 26th. Chairman Paulno.
The minutes can be found for that meeting on the city website. Item number 1, committee recommends council approve the separation from employment notice requirements employee handbook. And I would so move.
Second.
A motion by Paulno, seconded by Erickson to approve the separation employment portion of the employee handbook. Is there any discussion regarding that motion? Seeing none, all in favor of that motion will vote aye. If opposed, will vote no. That motion passes unanimously.
Item number 2, before I read that out, there's been a memorandum that was placed on our desks for all the aldermen, and I don't know when Attorney Gillespie put it here, but it must have snuck in shortly before the meeting. And just in relation to the Resolution 2018-10, there's recommendations, Attorney Gillespie, in regard to maybe postponing this. Process-wise, would it be easier just to move to item number 3? Do we have to take definitive action if we take no action? Or is it recommended to take action so we can postpone to a specific time?
Well, it is on the agenda for action, so something needs to be done, either to vote on the resolution or to postpone it as the mayor has requested.
Okay.
The mayor has requested that it be postponed to a future date.
Okay. All right. With that being said, the committee recommended council adopt Resolution 2018-10, authorizing execution of various documents relating to the bond financing of the Fox Cities Exhibition Center, subject to certification by the mayor that the appropriate project expenditures are reflected in the final documents, and subject to the exclusion of expenses for carried interest by the city of Appleton, legal fees related to the private bank loan option, and the financial analysis provided by Sperry Finance in total amount of $803,000, and I would so move.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion to approve Resolution 2018-10, and I'm assuming that means to vote on it this evening.
Is that a question?
Yes.
It's to get it on the floor, and I just wanted to make sure that all the aldermen had been able to read Attorney Glutzky's motion. Okay, we're all clear on that? I mean, his memorandum. Okay, yeah, so it was to put it on the table for discussion.
Okay. Thank you. Alderperson Bates, I believe you asked to speak.
Yes, I would request to, when the clerk can get my on, I want to make the motion to postpone the action to a meeting after the March 12th representative meeting that the mayor has called for the 9 municipalities. And now I can push the button. So I would so move to postpone that till after his meeting.
Okay, so we have, I'm going to ask the city attorney, I'm assuming I deal with this as a motion to amend?
It's the motion to postpone, which takes precedence over the main motion that's on the floor. By Robert's.
Okay, so we have a motion on the floor. It's a motion by Bates, seconded by Lendrum, to table?
To postpone.
Postpone. All right, so I make sure you use the right terminology. To postpone action on item Roman numeral 9B2 until after a meeting that will be held May 12th.
March
Is that
12th.
correct? March 12th. Is that correct? Okay. Alderperson Coons.
A point of order, is this motion debatable? Can we discuss and debate this under this motion?
I believe it is, yes.
Then, I mean, to me, I understand I don't understand the postponement, to tell you the truth. There's a lot I don't understand about what is before us, and I would hate to just postpone and move ahead without requesting information, particularly our legal ability in this circumstance, and Appleton's legal ability. I've heard rumors about the nuclear option that they plan on doing, or something to that matter. I don't know what that means. I don't know what legal ability they have, and no one's told me. And so it seems we're reacting to something that we don't know exists. And we need, for us to be able to truly make a good decision, we need to know our legal standing. And I mean ours, I mean the city in regards to this issue. In particular, I've heard different things, but my interpretation would be is Appleton is part of the issue, thinking that they're going to say, look, if you guys don't sign this, we're going to force you to sign this because the document says you have to. I don't know. I don't know if they can do that. Those are all the things that I need to know. I'm afraid what's going to happen is we'll come to this meeting and I'll get information, and then it'll be too late to ask any of these questions, and we'll have to make a decision based on a lack of information. So I think it's important that we figure out what we all are looking for and require when we are asked to make a decision. I guess I'm not sure even about the postponement and what we hope to gain from that, nor exactly when we're postponing it. So I'm concerned about postponing this, first of all, to a date that we haven't quite laid out specifically, meaning should we have it, since we're already meeting on the 12th, have it on the 12th, for one thing, and then what are we trying to gain and what information we need. I particularly would like to know exactly where we stand from a legal standpoint, and where Appleton stands, and where they're coming up with their options.
I'm going to ask the city attorney to respond.
Okay, thank you, Mr. President. As far as the legal standing, we're in the same position as the other 9 communities in terms of being on common ground with regard to response to the expenses to be paid out of the bonding issue. The any one of the communities could decide not to support the resolution, which would defeat the financing. It requires that all 10 communities sign the same or adopt the same resolution that approves the same documents in the common format that's been proposed. Part of the reason for the request for delay is that there is some movement. Apparently, Appleton is considering some options that they wish in a closed session tonight that the word has come back that may have some positive outcome. We don't know the details of that yet. May have some positive outcome in terms of how this project goes forward. The mayor, I think, in my conversation with him, felt that it was important to give that an opportunity to be heard and to hear what the other 9 communities are feeling about the situation before a decision is made to move forward on this resolution at this time.
Can I just follow up? I mean,
sure.
I thought that part of that agreement was we signed saying we would sign the bonding. That was what it said. We will sign it. It didn't say not if we don't like it, at least in my understanding. And that's the clarity I'm looking for. So I thought there was some legal obligation on each community's part to sign, not saying can we really say, nope, we're not signing, we're out, we're ending the agreement just because we feel like it?
No, the reason why there is the opportunity to re-examine what's going on is the bonding transaction has changed in its substance because they had pursued the private bank loan option as an alternative. They got out of the schedule and changed the structure of the transaction, and as a result, there's a need to approve a new amended cooperation agreement, and as a result, that gives us the opportunity to review the structure of the current deal and have some input on that. That's the difference between that. The deal that is being proposed here is not what was anticipated by the original cooperation agreement.
Alderperson Pono.
Yeah, I just want to comment in regard, before getting specifics, the timing. I think the best, because there's no definitive, to Alderman Kuhn's point, there's no definitive time. I think what makes the most sense is postpone or refer this back to the committee. I mean, the committee meets at 7 o'clock on Monday, and that would allow us the time to have that meeting, a platform and a specific timeline and the processes to address, allow Alderman Kuhn's time to maybe, because I know how I am, I'd like to write it via email or send specific emails to the city attorney, get some legal questions answered, because it's kind of hard. I know it's 150-page agreement. Maybe he has some specific questions he might think of later, and that way we keep the process moving, but we're definitive and we allow opportunity for discussion at a what's intended, the finance committee. So if I do that, do I make an amendment for a specific date and time? Because right now there's no date and time, or can it be a friendly amendment, or how would I do that?
A motion to refer back to committee takes precedence on the floor if that's what you wish to do.
It could still be postponed. There's no date specific postponed to finance committee, or, I mean, what would be the best?
That'd be the form of an amendment.
Okay. It would need an amendment, and it couldn't be, okay. I guess I would then make an amendment to refer this back to committee or postpone. What's the best? I guess refer this back to committee Monday.
Specifically the Monday?
What's that?
Specifically the Monday.
To Monday Monday.
That would be a separate motion to refer back to committee, which takes precedence.
Okay, so I should make the motion then.
Yeah.
Okay, so we got a motion in a second, and then, to refer this back to committee. That's
Okay, so I have a motion made by Pono, seconded by Bates. I just want to make sure, Alderperson Bates, that you motion.
Yes,
Okay.
it was doing what I wanted it to do, which is get the information together before we made any decision on it.
Okay, so we have a motion to refer this, postpone or refer? Refer to committee, specifically to May 12th. Now,
March
12th.
March. Why? Just wants warm weather to come. March 12th. So, okay. So so I'm clear, there is no council meeting currently scheduled for Monday. I heard someone reference that they were meeting.
no.
Fine.
Committee of the whole is me.
Committee of the
Oh, it's
whole.
Committee of the Whole, that's right. Yes, Committee of the Whole is me.
And as Mr.
Go ahead.
President, as a reminder, we've got finance scheduled for 6, not 7, because 6 o'clock.
Yeah, well, and just to be fair to everyone, Patty wasn't aware of that. This is the thing.
wasn't aware of it.
I know, and I'll take the blame because Dean's out of town. Dean and I have been emailing and talking about this, so I'll take responsibility for not having the communication flow through its normal channels. So, my fault. Because Patty leaned over and says, "What meeting on Monday?" And I go, "Oh, 5 o'clock." I said, "You didn't know? Dean didn't tell you?" I said, "Well, he's in Florida." So that's my responsibility, and I accept it. And
So that just so I'm clear, we have a 5 o'clock meeting.
6 o'clock finance, and then a follow immediately after that by Committee of the Whole.
What's the committee of the whole topic in this? Okay.
Garbage.
Okay.
Okay, so we have a motion to refer back to committee specific to March 12th for this motion. Alderperson Coons.
Sorry to muddy the waters. Just we are meeting, and there's going to be a committee of the whole that same day. It seems this is a committee of the whole kind of discussion, other than a committee. And I just throw that out there. Thinking for those not on the finance committee, if they don't really care, then I won't. But I'll leave that.
Well, my only response is just like any other meeting that the council has where there's interest across committee responsibilities. If you're interested in coming, meeting to hear what is being talked about, that's your opportunity to come. So we have, I'm sorry, Alderperson Lenger.
At 5 o'clock on Monday, it's the Eagle Crest subdivision meeting in here. So we need to be really clear because there's a lot of confusion about Monday. So if, I don't know if there can be like a special email out or have everyone just make sure that they check the schedule for Monday, because right now there's potentially 3. 2 are only noticed. We don't know about, we know about the committee of the whole, but it's not noticed. And we don't have times yet for that. So
It'll be immediately following the finance committee. Not sure what the agenda looks like for Monday. So yes, again, my bad. Alderperson Lenger, are you done?
I am. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other discussion on the motion to refer this topic back to the March, you got that right, March 12th meeting? Okay, seeing no more discussion, all in favor of this back to committee will vote aye, opposed will vote no. That motion passes unanimously.
Item number 3.
Yep.
Committee recommends council adopt a second amendment to the boundary memorandum of understanding that would extend the deadline for completing the statutory boundary agreement to September 1st, 2019, and direct the city attorney and the director of community development to provide the committee with a Fox crossing boundary agreement proposal within 2 months. I would so move. I think. Wait a second.
Second.
Just a clarification. I read it out quickly, but I think that was a process to develop the proposal. I think that was what was the committee, and people in the committee can correct me if I'm wrong, but the way this is read out, it says you're going to have a proposal within 2 months. Just so I'm clear, for the city attorney and Director Hayes, was it that you're going to develop a game plan and a process to get us to the agreement?
That's what my understanding of the motion was.
And that was mine as well. Is a second okay? Okay. Patty, you clear on that? Then it's the boundary agreement proposal treatment method, I guess, is what was discussed at committee, to come back at committee in 2 months. Like, what's your game plan?
Alderperson Coons.
Just to take on in particular, if there's any additional resources needed to do that, whether it be other legal or planning or whatever, to have that kind of game plan laid out. At least my request.
We might have our assistant city attorney on staff. You never know.
Yeah, and part of it was the planning, as I remember, too. So it was, yeah.
Okay, we have a motion regarding the memorandum of understanding with the village of Fox Crossing to have a structure in place within 2 months. Right, Alderperson Palmer?
Yeah, a process structure. Yep.
Any other discussion regarding that motion? Okay, seeing none, all in favor of that motion, vote aye. Opposed will vote no. Okay. That motion passes unanimously.
And that concludes my report.
Thank you. Brings us to item Roman numeral 10A, the Plan Commission meeting from February 27th. Alderperson Lang.
Thank you, Council President Stevenson, reporting from the meeting of February 27th. The minutes from the meeting can be found on the city's website. The Commission recommends Council accept the gift for land located on the northwest corner of Bell Street and South Park Avenue and assign jurisdiction of the land to the Neenah Parks and Recreation Department, and I would so move.
Second.
We have a motion by Erickson and second by who?
I moved. And yours
Sorry.
is a second. I just hadn't pressed my button fast enough.
Thank you. We have, you want?
I
No,
made the
Lang
motion.
made-
Erickson
back it up?
seconded. Pressed her button before I pressed mine.
I think Patty can, there. Now, Alderperson Lang, if you would move. Alderperson Erickson.
Yes.
Perfect. We have a motion and a second to accept the gift of a, what is that? Power substation. Thank you. Yep, former substation at the corner of Bell Street and South Park Avenue. Discussion, who's first? Bates or Boyette's first? Okay, Alderperson Boyette.
So I have a question on this because it's a gift. Does that fall under donation? And then do we follow that policy?
Who are you asking?
A gift of land is reviewed by the Plan Commission by statute.
So then our ordinance doesn't apply to the donation?
It's a policy. The statute supersedes the policy, so it's been vetted by the Plan Commission.
Okay, so what does our donation policy proceed over then? Not land?
Grants, donations, equipment.
Armored vehicles?
Yeah, armored vehicles.
Things that come up.
I'm just curious because this is kind of rare so I'm just wondering.
Yeah, no, the statute specifically requires the Plan Commission to review a donation of land to the city.
Okay, thank you.
Alderperson Bates?
Thank you, President Stevenson. With this, I would also request that the parks as well as the Public Services Department look at adding sidewalks to this stretch, because that was one of those things linking up from the south side of the street to the north side of the street. It's very inconvenient to go through there, and I think it would be a wonderful connection to the Mahler Trail.
Think staff heard that?
Yeah, it's in the plan.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Alderperson Paulno?
Process-wise, again, the Park and Rec Commission, do they have to take action to accept land that's given? I mean,
No, the council has the authority to assign that to the Park and Rec.
can take it whether they want it or not.
No.
That's fair. I can live with that.
I think the recommendation to the Plan Commission by staff was to Park and Rec because the Bill Miller Trail goes right past here, and
And we're talking, is it a quarter of an acre? I mean,
it's pretty small, yeah.
Assuming at one time the council forced the Park and Recreation Commission to accept Arrowhead Park. Saying them. Accepted. Alderperson Erickson.
Thank you, Council President Stevenson. I think this is a great gift to the city. It borders Bill Miller Trail, and I think it's going to be a nice thing to have for the trail system. So it's nice that they've added lighting. Wisconsin Electric added lighting to this part of the trail, and they took away the substation, and it looks really nice right now. So thank you.
Yeah. Go ahead, Director Hayes.
Not sure what's worse.
Tonight?
Just to remind the council how that land came to be. It was part of the negotiated deal with the new substation that we annexed on, and the property that we annexed in the new substation on County Trunk Highway JJ west of town. So this was all part of that proposal. So it has taken a while to get there. And the lighting that you mentioned, Alderman Erickson, was part of that as well. So it's I think it's worked both for We Energies and for the city. The partnership is, both entities have come out with a win-win on this.
Yeah, thank you, Chris, for reminding us of that. I know Alderperson Erickson has spent a lot of time trying to manage that issue with her constituents, so I'm glad this is working out. Any other discussion on the motion to accept? Seeing none, all in favor, please vote aye. Opposed will vote no. The Park and Recreation Commission has a new parcel to manage. Okay, that concludes your report, Alderperson Lang. Takes us down to Roman numeral 10B, the Board of Public Works, Vice Chairman Hillstrom.
Thank you, Council President Stevenson. Board of Public Works met on March 1st, and the minutes can be found on the city website. There's one informational item this evening. That is the board approved pay estimate number 1 for contract 8-17, Commerce Pond, Port Pond expansion and storm sewer installation to Carl Bowers and Sons Construction Incorporated, Kaukauna, in the amount of $207,944. There are 3 council action items. First one is the board recommends council award contract 2-18, sewer and water main construction and street construction on Cecil Street and Adams Street, with a low bid of concrete alternate from David Tenner Corp., Greenville, in the amount of $1,791,848.10, and I would so move.
Motion by Hillstrom, seconded by Lendrum.
Second.
To approve the acceptance of contract 2-18, sewer and water main construction and street construction on Cecil Street and Adams Street to David Tenner Corporation. The amount of $1,791,848.10. Alderperson Paulno.
George Kaiser, when would you have final numbers for people who had decided to do the sanitary lateral and or water? When will you know that?
Well, they could really get in touch with us anytime.
Mm-hmm.
We have used the, I wish I'd brought them down with me. We have calculated the revised street assessment calculation for both of these streets. And we have unit pricing on all of the lateral work. So certainly they could get in touch with us at any time and we can walk them through the cost of the various options.
And that was typically, I know we've been focusing more on being more proactive by contacting people. When do you get those numbers finalized? Like how many were, when would that be available?
For our contractors, we more or less need to lock people in by a certain point, which I think we're looking at. I don't know if Carol's on some of those, but it's normally early to mid-April that we lock that in.
Yeah.
Not saying we won't sneak somebody in later on, but it's helpful for a contractor to be able to schedule the work better.
So April, mid-April?
Yeah, I would say mid-April we'll have a good idea on what our numbers are.
No, and I haven't read the last newsletter closely. Did we put something in the newsletter, or has that been a standard practice to try to get as many people as possible?
I wouldn't say it's been a standard spring item for us.
Seems the more...
that certainly is something that we could get on our schedule for an annual note on that.
I mean, it's explained to people. They might, you think they won't buy into it, but if you explain it to them, a lot of times you might get more than you would think.
Sure.
Alderperson Kuntz.
Thank you. I just want to piggyback on that. And an opportunity also, my understanding is we don't notify them of the actual price until they get the bill. That right?
We will provide them with an estimate based on the bid pricing. It's not unusual for certain things to be discovered in the course of the work that tweak that a little bit, but we certainly can give them a decent estimate, I think.
Other thing, it'd be a nice combination of now we have this number, here's what it is, and oh, by the way, all your lateral and whatever work is this, and you need to decide by then.
Sure. Yeah, anybody can contact our office and we'll work them through an estimate on that.
Okay. Any other discussion on the awarding of contract 2-18? Seeing none, all in favor of that contract award will vote aye. Opposed will vote no. That motion passes unanimously.
Item number 2, the board recommends council approve the final payment for contract 1-17, miscellaneous water main construction and street construction on Cecil Street and Higgins Avenue to DeGroot Incorporated, Green Bay, in the amount of $52,123.30, withholding $10,000. Of the final payment to address pavement ride in the eastbound lane on Cecil Street to be addressed this summer, and direct staff to report the final disposition on the matter, and I would so move.
Motion by Hillstrom, seconded by Bates for final payment to contract 1-17 in the amount of $52,123.30, withholding $10,000 of the final payment to address the pavement ride in the eastbound lane of Cecil Street. Alderperson Palmo?
2 questions. First one for non-city engineer. Can you define what pavement ride is?
Sure. If you've been on that section of Cecil Street between Maple and Oak, driving eastbound, you'll see it's not a harsh washboard, but there's a definite noticeable thumping as you go along. That was related to an issue that the paving contractor, was having with his paving machine at the time that lane was getting pulled. As I mentioned when we brought this to the board, the pavement's fine. It's just the ride that is the issue on that. And so we had discussions with the contractor last fall already as to what our options were to address it.
And worst case scenario, is 10,000 enough to be holding back?
Yeah, we priced out doing a slight diamond grind on that lane. That would be kind of the worst case scenario. And we can do that within that amount of money.
Thank you.
Alderperson Bates.
Thank you, President Stevenson. I appreciate that this is how we're working out that the last payment for a contract comes before council. We were unsure on the Board of Public Works whether to wait for the $10,000 is the actual final payment, but this one seems to make more sense where it is the biggest chunk before you get to that small withholding. So I appreciate that this is how it's being done.
Any other discussion items regarding the final payment to contract 1-17? Seeing none, all in favor of approving that final payment will vote aye. Any opposed will vote no. Final payment is approved.
Item C, and the last item this evening, the board recommends council approve the final payment for contract 2-17, miscellaneous sewer and water main construction and street construction on Cleveland Street, Edward Street, and Helen Street to Donnie Parker Excavating Incorporated of Hortonville in the amount of $20,524.54, and I would so move.
And moved and seconded, Hillstrom and Bates, to approve the final payment to contract 2-17 to Don E. Parker in the amount of $20,524.54. Is there any discussion on that final payment motion? Seeing none, all in favor of that final payment will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. The final payment is also approved.
That concludes my report.
Thank you, Vice Chairman Hillstrom. Roman numeral 10C, the Landmarks Commission report. Alderperson Lang.
Thank you, Council President Stevenson. There's no report. There was no meeting in February.
Okay, thank you. Anything from Sustainable Neenah Committee, Alderperson Kuntz?
No report this time.
Anything from the Bid Improvement Board, Alderperson Lang?
Yes, thank you, Council President Stevenson. Just a couple of things. The Warm Your Heart event was completely sold out, so that was good news. Ultimate Ladies Day will be April 21st. The annual meeting for the bid will be March 20th from 5 to 7 at Greens. And Just a couple updates. Radiant Spa will be opening in the marketplace, and a Pilates studio will be taking the place of the Shinery. So just a couple of updates for you, and that concludes my report.
Thank you. Berkshire Malheur Museum report. Alderperson Erickson.
Thank you, Council President Stevenson. Currently at the Berkshire Malheur Museum of Glass is the Fox Valley Area High School Glass Exhibition that will run from March 3rd through March 31st. The exhibit awards were presented on March 3rd, and I was in attendance, and there are wonderful pieces of glass that were designed by students throughout the area, so I encourage you to visit the museum and see all the works of the students. And there are many classes for youth and adults that are on the Berkshire Malheur Museum of Glass website, and I encourage you to check it out. And that concludes my report.
Thank you. Any presentation of petitions? Any other alderperson have a petition that's been presented to them? Seeing none, anybody want anything to do anything with council directives? Roman numeral 12. Seeing none, is there any unfinished business under Roman numeral 13? That takes us down to new business. There has been a request that Resolution 2018-11 be considered this evening, approving substantial amendment to the 2017 Community Development Block Grant Program. This was requested by alderpersons Hillstrom, Kuntz, Erickson, and Lang under Council Rule 9H. The resolution was included in our packet, and if someone would want to take it up for consideration, I would need a motion to approve that resolution.
Move to approve.
Thank you. Alderperson
Second.
Bates has moved, and Alderperson Lendrum has seconded the approval of Resolution 2018-11. Discussion regarding that motion? Alderperson Palmo.
Just for clarity, I don't know if this question goes to Director Hayes or maybe Director Easker. What monies are being moved, and what would be the new resulting balances of those funds? Probably more of a Director Easker question on the finance, possibly.
Sure, if that's necessarily a question I would be able to answer.
Okay.
Quite frankly.
Carol, do you have fund balances? We don't have the balance.
Because this question came up by me at committee, and it was referred to maybe as Director Easker question. So.
About 15,000 would remain in the small business fund.
No, because it's not spelled out in the motion, what monies, dollar amounts, because it was in our committee, like 225,000, and then I think 50,000. If my memory serves me.
55.
Approximately, yes.
Was it 55?
Pardon me?
Was it 55? I
Yes.
just want to know what the.
I think it was 55, yes.
So then what is being, you're reallocating that, so those funds are coming from one place to the other. What is the resulting new balance of where those monies are being placed?
From the small business fund, approximately 15,000 would be left.
No.
I guess I'm not understanding what.
So let me ask this. The dollars would be reprogrammed out of, the 225 is being reprogrammed out of small business. So the 225 comes out of small business, resulting in leaving $15,000 in that fund. The 225 would be reprogrammed to property acquisition and redevelopment. That's where that 225 would be.
What was the new balance of that then?
That 225, is that correct, Carol?
So it's empty, it's zero right now?
I want to make sure I'm right about that. I'm sorry. Is that?
Yes, that's why we are reprogramming.
So yes. So it's zero. So it's zero.
Okay. So,
and then the 55 is, Carol, correct me if I'm wrong, but as we bill the account for administrative charges, we draw administrative fees and we bill administrative fees. Sometimes the amount that's billed is less than what we have allocated to that account. So there's a remainder of 55,000 in planning and administration. That 55,000 is being transferred out resulting in a zero balance, correct?
Right, that's right.
And going into neighborhood improvement.
And so, I was just going to mention that each year we budget for planning and admin. So in 2018, we'll budget again for planning and admin.
So, and I know that's kind of a practice we do, the planning and admin, so, and then that's a budgetary amount, so would that indicate we're budgeting too much in that account if we have 55,000 and we hadn't?
Well, I think that accumulation has been over several years, not just a year, because I think our admin dollars are about 35, and then there are some programs, and Carol, you can clarify that are considered admin, I believe, in addition to just
Like
our own
fair
administration.
housing.
Yeah, I'm just trying to figure this out, and I haven't been able to in 6 years. So then the 225 that's being transferred, that'll go from the 225 amount to zero balance, and so that new where it's being transferred to is now 225.
Would be 225.
So the property acquisition was at zero for the total, or just for the 2018 allocation? I know we have to do some things by year, I believe, and then some things are cumulative per the program. Is that correct?
That's correct. So it would be, it would be 225, and it gets a little muddy that some of those dollars are $18, $17, $17,
The repayments.
and
The repayments.
and there would be unspent dollars. Small business loan is an example. Dollars that were allocated to the fund, and as Carol said, repayment of loan dollars, so that fund balance can grow. It can grow, but it's not necessarily predictable because of those loan payments vary.
Thank you.
Alderperson Kuntz.
Just a quick question. I wonder if we would need or is appropriate to do a amendment to this resolution to change that 225 to 215, being that would be, well, depending on what property negotiator, is it not necessary? I guess I'm looking for some.
I would very much say it's like a budget number. You know, we may have 250 but we come in under budget, so then there would be a remaining balance in that fund.
Thank you.
Alderperson Polno.
And dovetail on that, because of the one is kind of in relation to the other. And I've seen the emails go from the mayor and recommendations, and we had a lot of discussion at council on specific dollar amounts. One avenue of property would entail a certain dollar amount. There was things that were required from it that was above and beyond the purchase price that would be entailed in the other, same thing. But in the motion that's next, at least that's how it's read out on the agenda, it doesn't have any dollar amounts. And I usually don't try to conflate two different items on the agenda because that's confusing, but this one is directly related to the other. The reprogram as it's spelled out now wouldn't cover the dollar amounts that we have spoken about in committee. Is that correct, Director Hayes?
Not necessarily. So that if I can, as an example, in Resolution 21812, it's the recommendation is an either or. It's either 215 or 160. So the acquisition as an example of 200 Cecil, the 215,000 is higher than the 225. There are additional costs. I think you're referring to demolition, and those could ultimately be new appropriation dollars. Not that. So when we get to the new plan, I believe as early as April, we start the plan for the next year. We would allocate dollars in the next year's allocation to those items. That makes sense.
I definitely understand because it falls on the March 30th to April 1st calendar cycle for this program.
Right.
So
for expenditures, our program year is actually June 1. I'm sorry.
So we've previously used 1 or 2 year old money to make purchases, so that's where it gets very confusing for me. But with this not having a specific dollar reference and the information that was exchanged via email and or committee, it seems like that's problematic because we usually have a dollar amount listed, but this doesn't. So basically this, so I'm clear, you're asking to relocate certain dollar amounts for the strict purchase, but nothing above that in this cycle.
Essentially, yes. I mean, if we certainly, again, as an example, if that 225 and we spend 200 or 215, there's going to be a remaining balance. We could utilize those dollars, I believe, to fund some of those other things, demolition, relocation, but it's not going to be enough. So there would be additional dollars in next year's plan allocated to that same account, to that same fund to cover the difference.
Yeah, and I understand that, and that's where this program has always been confusing to me because we never specify the dollars and we commingle one year to the other, but then we say we have deadlines that we have to spend it, and without having it succinct for the next council, this is a succinct dollar amount is problematic because I can philosophically believe that we should do this, but I've never got a clear conversation of how the dollars are allocated. Everybody always looks at it and asks. You ask Carol, and Carol asks Mike, and everybody looks around, and nobody feels that way. So that's why this has always been problematic for me. Thank you.
Okay, we have a motion to approve Resolution 2018-11. Any other discussion regarding that motion? Okay, seeing none, all in favor of Resolution 2018-11 will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. 2018-11 resolution has been approved. And that brings us to the next agenda item, which is a request to bring Resolution 2018-12 to the floor pursuant to the Council Rule 9-sub-H. Is there a motion to approve Resolution 2018-12?
So moved.
Moved by Bates and seconded by Erickson to approve Resolution 2018-12. Discussion regarding that motion? Pono, Alderperson Pono?
I did have my button pushed. I don't know if I was pretty good at Jeopardy, but I don't know if.
You're still here. You didn't have a great luck.
I guess not that good.
You're kind of good. Alderperson Pono, then Boyette.
There was a lot of discussion about specifics about these purchases, and it was clear on the committee's level, I believe, that one avenue was preferred, as far as in the specific property, but this one doesn't spell that out. I didn't know if the council was, because I'd never seen an either or purchase before on our agenda, and I understand the reasoning, but so the way this is spelled out, there's no dollar amount listed, and either or is the option, but we have a deadline for my understanding, is March 30th. So if one item was chosen, Director Hayes, is it your intention to have everything that was spelled out in the committee completed on one by March 30th? That would be the game plan. Like tomorrow, you probably have to hit the ground running and or make move on that. Is that the intention?
The hope would be that we would have an acquisition closed before the end of the month.
And does that include all? Because in the committee it was spelled out at length about some had environmental items that needed to be discussed, and there was two in one. There was maybe two businesses that needed relocated. There was demolition costs, which, like I said previously, hasn't been spelled out for that allocation. So, you're confident that you can have all that done by March 30th?
No.
Okay, I was like, it's impressive.
Because it is quite aggressive. But just so I'm clear, the things that, depending on the property, we would have a phase one environmental done most likely on both. We have that lined up and ready to go and are being told we can have that done. The other biggest challenge with the 200 West Cecil property is the relocation plan that has to be approved prior to us actually negotiating, which is written negotiation, meaning a written offer. That's probably the most problematic. And then obviously the offer and a closing. So it is a lot to get done, and it's going to take some things. The stars are going to have to line up right to get it all done. Demolition, those types of things would come after. We're not going to get that done by March 31st, and I'm not particularly, we may actually have to wait for relocation, and that can come at any time. I'm not concerned with being in a big hurry for that.
The one last thing I have is this was primarily driven by the March 30th deadline, the use or lose community block grant dollars via HUD. Would that be a fair statement?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So that's
Alderperson Boyette.
So my question is for you, Director Hayes. On the commercial avenue or commercial property, there's also several steps that have to occur. We have to obtain 2 other pieces of property.
Yes and no. I think since our conversation, I know I've had this discussion, but I don't know that it was communicated to the whole council, and it's been an ongoing process. But so the council is clear. There's the issue, the biggest challenge, or one of the biggest challenges with the with block grant funds is the national objective. We can acquire either property and remove the buildings and meet a national objective. I did put this in the memo now I think about it, if we hold the property indefinitely, we're still meeting the national objective and we're fine. If and when we decide to develop the property, if it's developed in a way that with a use that meets a national objective, like a stormwater pond in the case of South Commercial Street, or a workforce housing has been discussed on Cecil Street, we're good. If we decide to pursue a development that doesn't meet a national objective, I want to say, I will say simply, I'm sure it's always more complicated than that, but we would have to sell that property at market rate and return those dollars to the fund and then reuse them for a similar type use. What is important in that is that we, the city, control that timeline. To your point, Alderman Boyette, you're correct. If we decide that the South Commercial Street project was going to move forward with the stormwater pond, it would require the assemblage of additional real estate.
And then if I could just ask one other question on what you just told me. What is the market rate on that Commercial Street property right now?
Well, our assessed value is quite a bit higher, but market rate, as we believe, it's about 100. That their definition of market is 160,000.
Alderperson Erickson.
I'm sorry, if I just clarify that though. The value today is maybe 160. Let's assume it is. If you clear the real estate, it's going to be quite a bit less because there's no longer improvements on it. So it would be valued just on the real estate, which is, I'm going to guess 30, 40, maybe 50,000.
Alderperson Erickson.
Thank you. I have a question for Director Hayes. You had mentioned that there are relocation costs to the Cecil Street project.
That's correct.
It was my understanding that they had that property for sale or have had it for sale for quite a while right now. Is that correct?
That is correct as well.
So the cost that the amount that we would be paying them would be similar to what some other business would be paying them, correct? If they
For an acquisition?
Yes.
Assumably, yes. I mean, if they're going to accept an offer from the city, I would assume they would accept a similar offer from a private entity.
But if they accepted it from the city, they would get the bonus of relocation costs. Is that correct?
Well, the tenant will get the benefit of the relocation, if you want to call it a benefit. We're going to be required to assist the existing tenant relocate to another suitable location.
Would that be within the city or
not sure.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Okay, we have the motion on the floor to approve Resolution 2018-12. Alderperson Palmer.
Yeah, just so in discussed in committee, just so the council is aware that either of these properties, and it's been stated here, would require at least 2 additional purchases of property to make it feasible with the stated usage, whether it be development type for low-income housing on Cecil, as it was stated in committee, or it would be a stormwater pond that had not been requested by the Public Works Department as a priority. So that's the realities that we discussed in committee. And so, so what's driving this is tax dollars developed, channeled through housing urban. And the main reason, as I see it, is that it's a use or lose philosophy. So we're trying to find the best suitable usage that we have, even though it wouldn't be preferable in a lot of people's eyes. And this is very nuanced, so most people don't understand how this works. I even have a challenge sometimes with the monies, but that being said, I would definitely don't think this is a path we should devote our development strategies and our energies with the legal department, like Attorney Gillespie's office, and/or community development. Other places we could channel those energies and put in the wrong foot forward.
Any other discussion regarding the motion to approve Resolution 2018-12? Seeing none, all in favor of that resolution will vote aye. Opposed will vote no. That motion passes 7-2. Brings us down to new business item C. Any announcements or questions that may legally become before the council? Alderperson Hillstrom.
Thank you, Council President Stevenson. Just want everybody to know that you can now sign up on the website to work at the drop-off site. Those who get in first get the best dates. Alderman Pono's on several times. I'm on several times. So please jump in.
Awesome. Thank you. I didn't realize that. Yeah, I think I can get on my iPad on 50% of the time. Alderperson Coons?
Thank you. Just a reminder, the school district is in the process of their facility studies. They've already had 2 meetings. Third one's March 19th. A lot of different things going on there. A lot of things been proposed, so take a look if you like.
Thank you, Alderperson Coons. Alderperson Bates?
Thank you, President Stevenson. I just want the people at home to know that there are debates coming up or public forums coming up for candidates, so keep your eyes open on the websites and the newspaper for what's coming up.
Now, there was some discussion earlier about that, and Patty indicated that she's a research where and when and how, and we'll look for the council on the city's website for that. Any other items for announcements? If not, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Moved by Paulno.
Second.
Seconded by Boyette to adjourn. All in favor will indicate with an aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, no. We're adjourned.
Broadcasts of the City of Neenah Common Council meetings are produced by University Studios of the University of Wisconsin-Fox Valley. Neenah residents can get information about City Council meetings, City Committee meetings, meeting agendas, and other documents via the City website, www.neenahgov.org. Neenah residents can express their opinions about city issues or about these broadcasts by contacting the mayor's office, contacting their city alderman, or by completing the electronic feedback form on the city website, www.neenahgov.org. All public portions of the meetings are recorded in entirety and are not edited for playback.